They didn't yell, they didn't insult you. They just said, "This is my boundary." And somehow, you still walked away feeling broken. What do you call it when someone uses the language of healing to shut you out, to avoid accountability, to stay in control while sounding emotionally mature? Because the words sound healthy, but what they do, that's something else entirely. Have you ever left a conversation feeling dismissed, even though everything sounded respectful? You kept replaying it in your head, thinking, they said they were just protecting their peace. So why do I feel like I wasn't even allowed to speak? This is where therapy talk starts to get dangerous. We live in a time where emotional language is everywhere. I'm setting a boundary. You're not aligned with my healing. That's your trauma to work through. These phrases sound enlightened, but often they're used to avoid discomfort, not to build connection, not to repair, not even to listen. The moment you try to explain how you feel, and they say, "That's your inner child talking," it doesn't feel validating. It feels like the conversation is already over. Let's break down what's actually happening here. Healthy boundaries are about clarity and care. They sound like, "This behavior hurts me, and I need space to feel safe, but I still care about this relationship." But weaponized boundaries, they sound like, "This is what I need. If you can't handle it, you're toxic." There's no room for your perspective, no shared space, just a quiet kind of control. And here's what's wild. People who use these tactics often believe they're being healthy. They've read the books, they've done the journaling, but sometimes they've just learned better vocabulary, not better relationship skills. Not every controlling person is loud. Some are calm, articulate, and completely disconnected from how much they're hurting you. You tell them you're feeling pushed away. They say, "Sounds like you're projecting. I'm not responsible for how you interpret things." And suddenly you're not talking about the relationship anymore. You're talking about your trauma response. See the shift? You're not met with curiosity. You're met with language that deflects, labels, and isolates. It's a soft kind of gaslighting, where your emotional truth is turned into a problem you're supposed to manage on your own. And this isn't just happening in romantic relationships. You see it with friends, siblings, even in workplace conversations. That's your shadow showing up. "I'm not available for low vibration interactions. I'm focusing on myself right now." The words sound emotionally intelligent, but they feel hollow, dismissive, like someone used psychology to get out of accountability. If you've ever felt emotionally shut down by someone who sounded healed but didn't act like it, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's something you've heard in the name of healing that actually made you feel small? Because this channel isn't here to romanticize psychology. It's here to help you understand the power dynamics hiding inside it. If you've ever thought, maybe I'm overreacting, this is why it works. This kind of emotional shutdown doesn't really feel like abuse. It actually feels like your fault. Because, you know, when someone uses therapy language, we just assume they know better. We assume they're being thoughtful. We start to believe we're the one who's being messy. And if you're self-aware, you start to overanalyze everything. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I am being triggered. Maybe this is about my past. And now, instead of standing up for your feelings, you're just trying to manage them privately. That's how this works. You internalize blame for the sake of being emotionally mature, while the other person never actually has to grow. A real boundary protects your peace. A weaponized one protects your control. So how do you actually tell the difference? Ask yourself, does this boundary create space for clarity, or does it just shut things down? Is it protecting my values, or just my discomfort? Does it invite repair, or just declare authority? Here's an example of a real boundary. I love you, and I want to keep talking about this, but I need a few hours to calm down so I can respond with care. Now here's a weaponized boundary. This energy is not aligned with me. I'm stepping away. One centers relationship, the other centers image. The more we talk about healing, the less we actually seem to tolerate each other. Instagram, TikTok, and self-help circles have kind of turned psychology into a branding tool. Everyone wants to be the most self-aware, the most regulated, the least toxic. But in the rush to be emotionally perfect, we start using therapy terms like weapons. You're love-bombing me. This feels like a trauma bond. I need to hold space for myself. The problem isn't the words. It's how they're used to shut people down instead of open them up. Healing becomes a performance, and underneath all that spiritual polish, we're just avoiding intimacy. Have you ever felt more anxious around someone the more therapy they did? You start filtering your words. You second-guess your tone. You worry that you'll be labeled as unhealed just for having a messy emotion. That's the paradox. The people who claim to be the safest often make others feel the most unsafe. Why? Because it's not safety they want. It's emotional control disguised as boundaries. You're not allowed to be clumsy, triggered, or vulnerable. You're only allowed to be calm, regulated, and hyper-aware of their limits, which isn't a relationship. It's performance art with emotional stakes. True healing makes room for imperfection, not punishment for it. Some of the most emotionally manipulative people you'll meet won't raise their voice. They'll raise their vocabulary. They'll say you're dysregulated. They'll say your concerns are your trauma talking. They might even call your boundaries controlling. It sounds clinical, self-aware, enlightened. But what it really does, it shuts you down while they look composed. This is especially common in people with narcissistic or emotionally avoidant traits. They don't scream, they don't insult, they diagnose you mid-conversation without a license. And the moment you push back, you get labeled as toxic, codependent, or not doing the work. But here's the truth. A real boundary protects your peace. A fake one punishes people for not meeting your emotional expectations. When someone says, "I'm not engaging with this energy," but they used to be deeply involved, it's not always a boundary. It's often withdrawal as control. So how do you protect yourself from that without sounding unhealed? Try this. I want to keep this conversation open, but only if we can actually hear each other, not just defend our terms. Or, I respect your space, and I also want to make sure we're not just avoiding something hard. Language like this shifts the conversation from labels to connection. It invites repair, not retreat, and it reminds both people healing isn't a title you wear. It's a choice you show up for, especially when things get hard. Just because someone didn't scream doesn't mean they didn't silence you. You're allowed to feel hurt by a relationship that used beautiful words and still left you emotionally hollow. You're allowed to grieve being dismissed in polite, mindful ways. You're allowed to say, "I was manipulated," even if they journaled every day. And if you've caught yourself doing this, you're allowed to learn and grow past it. Because real healing isn't about having the right words. It's about how you show up when things get uncomfortable. It's about staying present, owning your impact, making space without shutting people out. And that kind of healing, you don't have to announce it. People will feel it in how safe they are with you. You don't have to perform your healing. You don't have to get the language right. You just have to be honest with yourself. Am I building connection, or am I hiding behind concepts? Because healing isn't what you say, it's what you choose to do when someone else is in pain.